Number 10. The Jury. When there was a mass breakout from the vault, General Owen Taylor's son, Hugh, was tragically killed by Venom, so Taylor and his other son, Max, were out for some sweet revenge. Now, some other hotheads eventually got involved, and eventually they were called the Jury. They kidnapped Spider-Man and tried him for bringing the symbiote to Earth in the first place. They were pretty official. The Jury would be awesome in the MCU because when the Jury lost their support staff and funding, they were all hired by Edwin Cord, which is an enemy of Iron Man's. Now, at the same time, US Agent was hired to be the team's leader. The Jury wears modified guardsman armor, with each member rocking a cool weapon. In Thunderbolt issue 23, we see Sentry, Bomb Blast, Firearm, Ramshot, and Whisper on the team. We're getting Armor Wars in the MCU, so never say never. If Venom comes to the MCU, US Agent would totally get involved. He's already on the naughty list. Number 9. PYRE. First appearing in Venom Funeral PYRE issue 1, Gray Russell was a young journalist who discovered his dying father was working for Hydra. Oof, big oof on that one. So Gray went to an abandoned Hydra base to get more info on his father, or really any info in general. And when he got there, a gang had taken over the land. So Gray hired 2 guys to go in and attack a lone member of this gang, and then Gray came in and then saved them, you know, the classic. He saved them, they accepted him into their ranks, all was going well, but when it came to initiation time, Gray had to take part in a drive-by shooting. These guys were the real deal. The Punisher then came in, obviously, and then everything got quite messy. But while that popped off, Gray was able to run back to the lab where the Super Soldier program was left. Gray entered a chamber, clicked some buttons, and then turned himself into PYRE. And before we continue on with this list, you already know the drill. Go give us a thumbs up if you're loving this nerdy content. And also give us a thumbs up just because, you know, we're having a good time. Number 8. Virus. Mac Gargan blamed Venom for ruining his entire life. This was after Absolute Carnage. Gargan was left a paraplegic, so he got all of his money and did a supervillain gear haul. He got an old War Machine suit, vibro shock gauntlets, an old Goblin glider, and pumpkin bombs. He made this entire new suit, gave it a menacing paint job, and went after Venom, now as Virus. He ambushed Eddie and actually managed to separate him from the symbiote, while of course monologuing about his cursed past the whole time. Gargan almost took Eddie out when he was crushing his ribcage, but luckily the symbiote had his back and Gargan had to retreat. When Virus attacked again, he followed Dylan Brock to a warehouse owned by the Maker. Virus fought through the Maker's defenses and kept attacking Venom to a point where he accidentally destabilized the Maker's interdimensional portal machine, and when Venom and Dylan got sucked into it, Virus went as well. No matter where they end up, Virus wanted to end Venom, even if it's Universe 1610. Number 7. Jack-O-Lantern. First appearing in Captain America issue 396, Steve Levins was originally a villain to Cap and Spider-Man. Now he was part of the Red Skull skeleton crew, but later on, his recent origins, they're actually quite tragic. In Venom Volume 2, Jack was this troubled child who disobeyed his parents and enjoyed hurting animals, just all around not a great pupil. One Halloween, he visited the crime master who straight up kidnapped this child, but over time, Jack believed that he was his real father. It was twisted stuff. And on top of that, he was trained to be a master assassin, and to show his devotion to his new father, he took out his real parents in a brutal way. He turned them into human jack-o'-lanterns. So I'll let you paint that photo in your head for a bit. When Crime Master sent Jack to find Dr. Ekmakik, who was an expert in handling Antarctica vibranium, Flash Thompson's Agent Venom was also trying to do the same. Neither of them got their hands on this guy, but they did become enemies in the process, which, well, that's all you need really. Number 6. The Sin Eater. Great nickname, love him already. Stanley Carter entered comics way back with Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 107. As a child, Stanley was sent to live with his grandparents in the Ozarks. His father passed away at a young age and his mom was in a rehab clinic. So again, a tough upbringing. These villain stories just don't come out of nowhere, it's always a tragic start. After his grandfather got bit by a rattlesnake, Jesus, he sadly didn't make it, but there was a sin-eating ritual held for him where a masked hermit came along and then ate fruit from his dead corpse. Disgusting. So when the Sin Eater looked at Stanley, he felt a connection with him. Maybe it was the raspberries and the guts on his face. It was maybe hard to look away. I don't know. I'm gonna throw up. Weeks later, his mother returned and took him with her to New York City. Stanley grew up to become a SHIELD agent where he volunteered for an experimental drug. This drug was said to increase strength and stamina, and now this obviously didn't work, and he immediately started to go mad. He got a shotgun, a new costume, and sought out to rid the world of sins himself. SHIELD experiment gone wrong. We can never have enough of those in the MCU. MCU. Throw them in, why not? Let's do it. Number 5, the Stalkers. Making their first appearance in Venom Knights of Vengeance issue 1 back in 1994, the Stalkers are former mercenary gun runners. We have Briggs, Cass, Raiden, and Trent. Their whole thing was selling guns, but one day when they picked up these weapons from an alien ship, they themselves were infected with a techno-organic virus. A strange voice had encouraged them to pick up these weapons, and like fools, they did, and now they're a super crew with super weapons built in to their bodies. The virus took over their entire body, and eventually the Stalkers started to behave like hunters. They wanted to eliminate every human from the planet, as do most of these villains for some reason. So Venom had to take them down, of course. The final Stalker Venom had to fight was Trent, big old T Trent. He had just absorbed everything at this point and was able to take on Venom and Vengeance at the same time. That's wild. Now Venom luckily hit him with his own energy lance, but that fight was way too close for comfort. If we had him in the MCU or any of these guys, it would be a blast. Number 4, Juggernaut. Cain Marko has been one of Marvel's biggest and baddest characters since his first appearance in X-Men issue 12. Once Marko came into contact with the gem in the Lost Temple of Sidorak, he himself obtained the power of the Crimson Bands of Sidorak, becoming a human Juggernaut. Cain was hired by Skarmour CEO Charles Evans to take care of anybody who was planning to sue his company. If you can't beat him in court, just beat him up. Alright, sure. One of those targets was Venom's love, Beck Underwood. So of course he went toe-to-toe with Cain. The pair fought for a long time, and Juggernaut was just whipping Venom around, adding to his anger, and then in turn he was getting hit right back from Venom. It got to a point where the Juggernaut just gave up and left the fight. He just abandoned his entire contract. I love it. They're bringing Deadpool over to the MCU, so hopefully Juggernaut can squeeze in as well. One can dream, right? Number 3, Scream. Making its first appearance in Venom Lethal Protector number 4, this scary looking symbiote is one of the 5 Life Foundation symbiotes. Donna Diego, a Life Foundation volunteer, bonded with the symbiote and became Scream. She made a fun appearance in the Venom movie, but still, it's not the MCU. We need them in the MCU. We need web swingers. It has to happen. They need to meet Spider-Man. She helped new hosts deal with a new symbiote merging, and I imagine it's not too comfortable to have an alien race inside of your head, so she comes in handy. The coolest thing about her is that she can use her hair to fight as well, so she's pretty unique to watch in action. In the comics, she went like 20 years without actually having a proper name, which is wild to me. She didn't don the name Scream until a toy line from Toy Biz dropped the action figure in the 90s, and they just titled it Scream. So yeah, she deserves more attention. Definitely put her in the MCU as well. Number 2, Toxin. Born from Carnage, we have symbiote number 1000. Toxin first appeared in Venom vs. Carnage number 2 in 2004. Now when Carnage was giving birth to Toxin, Carnage initially wanted to destroy the spawn. But once Toxin was finally born, Carnage was too weak by the process to kill it at that point. Venom on the other hand wanted to raise the spawn and train it, and even named it Toxin. See, he gets a name, come on guys. New York City cop Patrick Mulligan then became the host of the symbiote. Patrick actually left his wife and kid because this thing was too unpredictable and powerful and dangerous. So Venom and Carnage saw this police officer infused with Toxin and knew that it would most likely end up becoming a hero. A hero with the abilities to shapeshift, unlimited webbing, healing factor, tracking specialties. It could even hide itself in the blood of its host, so this is a pretty dangerous hero. So they both obviously wanted to try and kill it, and of course they both failed. Toxin stands out from the rest of the symbiotes because, as I said earlier, he's spawn number 1000. Every 1000 generations, the symbiote is born with what's called genetic memory breakdown, and since he was abandoned at a young age, he never really acted like a true symbiote in the first place. During a heated battle with Venom and Carnage, Toxin was actually given a helping hand by the web-slinger himself, Spider-Man. After the unlikely duo defeated Venom and Carnage, Spider-Man encouraged him just to be better. I would love to see this unfold in the MCU. Bring over Venom, Carnage, let's bring them all over, let's party. Then we can do all these amazing relationships with Spider-Man. That's the whole point. Please, please. And finally, number 1. Null. The god of the symbiotes himself, here we go. Making his debut in Venom Volume 4, Issue 3. So all the way before life and creation itself, before the universe even, I'm talking way back in the day, ancient deities awaited in the darkness. Once the universe became a thing, Null, the god of darkness, wasn't a fan of the company, and he set out to destroy the Celestials, and then he immediately went to war. So after forging the All Black, which was a sword of living darkness, and a Celestial's head, he got his ass handed to him. He figured out a new plan. He figured, you know what, maybe if I can just create symbiotes, I can manifest my own suit, and then create an army, and then go after these gods. He's recently given the Avengers a run for their money when he arrived on Earth in King in Black. If you haven't read King in Black, you must do so right after this video.
And it's CHAMELEON. being the first villain Spider-Man ever faced way back in Amazing Spider-Man #1 in 1963, I think we're due for a chameleon appearance in the MCU, and honestly, I think we could be getting it. With the build up to No Way Home on the horizon, with the movie planning to come out this Christmas, I have a sinking feeling that what we'll be seeing isn't exactly a multiverse of villains, but rather Chameleon taking on these other appearances. We've already had a theory of the Chameleon being present in Far From Home, especially since John Watts revealed that it would be great for the Chameleon to appear in Far From Home before settling on Mysterio, and with the insane technology being present in the MCU at this point, they could really do anything they wanted. So Chameleon really being the villain in No Way Home is certainly what I'm betting on. It would make people mad for sure, but it would be such a good twist. The only way I'm not going to believe it is until either after the movie's done or if we see two villains at the same time. In at 9, RHINO. First appearing in Amazing Spider-Man #41 from 1966, the RHINO, otherwise known as Alexei Setsevic, underwent an experimental procedure that gave him an artificial skin and super strength. While not being the brightest or the sharpest tool in the shed, we have already seen a version of this character on the big screen during the final moments of the Amazing Spider-Man 2, which means that we may actually see him in the next Spider-Man MCU movie, if this actually does turn out to be the multiverse and not the Chameleon. However, if we do end up seeing a true MCU version, I'd rather have one closer to the original or the Spider-Man Sony video game rather than the mechanized one we see in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Just personal preference. Not everyone can have outstanding technology, right? Plus, the mech version is more along the lines of the Ultimate Universe, and after that whole Wanda Pietro thing, I'm staying well away from that. And at 8, Hobgoblin. Being introduced in Amazing Spider-Man #238 in 1983, the Hobgoblin was inspired by the work of Green Goblin and has been a moniker used by a few individuals, including the original Roderick Kingsley, followed by Jason McIndale during the late 80s and 90s, and after that Phil Urich. The character also made an appearance in the 1990s Spider-Man animated series and actually appeared before the Green Goblin made his debut in that show. With No Way Home introducing the Green Goblin to the MCU, and Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin no less, the potential for someone to be inspired by him is present, and if Norman ends up leaving his glider behind, Hobgoblin would have an easy time either stealing it or acquiring it and using it for his own nefarious means. Hobgoblin honestly used to freak me out as a kid. I can't quite remember why, but either way I'd love to see an adaptation of this character appear in the MCU facing off against Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It would also give him his own unique goblin since Tobey already got the most iconic one. And at 7, SPIDERCIDE. SPIDERCIDE is a more obscure and odd Spider-Man villain that I still think would make a great addition to the MCU. Being first introduced as SPIDERCIDE in New Warriors #61, this version of Peter Parker is one of the clones made by Dr. Miles Warren, which is an entirely separate villain that could also appear, but I'm sure they would explain this away with someone remembering Mysterio revealing Peter's identity and then gaining a DNA sample. What's notable about SPIDERCIDE, however, is not only him having all of Spider-Man's powers, but also the ability to stretch and warp his body at will, similar to Mr. Fantastic, which could be another way to introduce the Fantastic Four to the MCU as well. SPIDERCIDE is also definitely deadly, helping Jackal to release a virus in Springfield, Pennsylvania, resulting in the deaths of over 2,600 people. Is it likely that this character will appear in the MCU? No. But would I love to see it? Absolutely. And at 6, Morbius. Michael Morbius will be getting his own movie in 2022. However, it is not planned to be a part of the MCU, rather a part of the SSU, Sony's Spider-Man universe, along with Venom, Venom Let There Be Carnage, and KRAVEN the Hunter. First introduced in Amazing Spider-Man #101 in 1971, Dr. Michael Morbius was a scientist born in Greece who became a Nobel Prize winning biochemist. He was suffering from a blood disease and developed an experimental treatment in an effort to cure it. Its side effects though turned him into vampire Jason, who ended up needing to consume blood in order to survive and gain typical vampire characteristics such as aversion to sunlight and the powers of flight, enhanced strength, speed, and a healing factor. His overall appearance also changed as well. He gained fangs, his nose flattened to appear more like a bat, and his skin became extremely pale like me but with less of a nose and sharper teeth. Additionally, the victims of his bite would turn into living vampires themselves, which is absolutely crazy. This character also made an appearance in the 90s Spider-Man animated series, however it was a kids show so he had to consume plasma instead of blood, and his origin was changed as well when he spliced his DNA with Peter Parker's using the neurogenic recombinator and a bat jumped in front of the ray. Would I like to see him in the MCU? Of course, he's an iconic villain, but I don't know if Sony is gonna let go of the leash that they have around the other Spider-Man characters considering how well Spider-Man's doing in the MCU and they ain't making enough profit from it. Just saying. Halfway through into number 5, KINGPIN. Wilson Fisk. First appearing in The Amazing Spider-Man number 50 in 1967, Wilson Grant Fisk is a wealthy entrepreneur and philanthropist by day, but secretly is a criminal mastermind running nearly all of New York's underground activities. The character has been adapted into multiple different media, including video games, TV, movies, and cartoons as well. But could the character be coming to the MCU? It's possible, with fans speculating the introduction of Matt Murdock, also known as Daredevil, as Peter's lawyer in No Way Home. Both characters the Kingpin is associated with will be in the MCU, and considering the magnitude of that and his existence in the Daredevil Netflix series, it's certainly possible we get Wilson Fisk on the big screen. The reason people believe Matt Murdock to be in this movie is thanks to a slight differentiation in the leaked trailer versus the official one. In the scene where the files are slammed onto the desk, in the leaked trailer we can see this man's face. However, in the official one his face is out of frame. This seems to indicate the desire to keep his character secret, but is this the case, or is Marvel just pulling a double bluff? I guess we'll have to wait until Christmas to find out. In at 4, Kraven the Hunter. Kraven the Hunter is one of Spider-Man's earlier villains, appearing first in The Amazing Spider-Man number 15 from 1964. Since then, Kraven has endured as one of the web-slinger's most formidable foes, and is part of the collective of adversaries that make up Spider-Man's rogues gallery. Kraven has since come into conflict with other heroes as well, such as the Black Panther. He is also the half-brother of the Chameleon, and is one of the founding members of the Sinister Six. With the potential of Chameleon being introduced in No Way Home, we also have to consider Kraven's likelihood of appearing, especially considering how he's getting his own movie in the Sony Spider-Man universe, which means if the two universes ever merge or cross over due to some other spell gone wrong, the character will surely make an appearance or at least be confirmed, even if he's not on screen, because you know, he'll be in that universe. Kraven is one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains and is one that I see as a recurring request by fans. I certainly think that there are more interesting characters that could be used instead, but I'd still be happy to see him in the MCU. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Spider-Carnage. Spider-Carnage is my favorite alternate version of Spider-Man. Being introduced in the Spider-Man animated series from the 1990s, this version of Peter Parker shared most of his early life with the superior counterpart. However, the difference between the two was Aunt May at some point died as well, being buried next to Uncle Ben. But thanks to some messing around with interdimensional portals by Jonathan Owen, a version of the Carnage symbiote sensed this Peter's anger and combined with him, turning him into Spider-Carnage, a villain set on revenge and the destruction of all realities. Man after my own heart. This character would require symbiotes to be introduced, but oh my god would I love to see this character on the big screen. Even if he only appeared in the final few episodes, Spider-Carnage is one of the coolest iterations of Spider-Man to date in my opinion, and is part of the reason why I love the 90s cartoon so much. Seeing this on screen would be a dream come true for me, and while it may not be possible, I want it so bad. I also want a pop figure of this character, because that would be sick. Penultimately, in at number 2, symbiotes. On a more general note, symbiotes in the MCU would also be incredible. While they are mostly, I'm sure, going to be limited to the SSU, they would be required to see Spider-Carnage or any other really insane versions of characters, like Red Goblin or even Venomized anything. Even if it's not Venom or Carnage, someone like Scream, Toxin, or even Anti-Venom would make an amazing addition in my opinion. The first appearances of a symbiote occurs in The Amazing Spider-Man number 252, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 90, and Marvel Team-Up number 141, all of which released concurrently in May of 1984, in which Spider-Man brings a symbiote home to Earth after the Secret Wars. Secret Wars number 8, which was released months later, actually details how he got the symbiote. The concept was created by a Marvel Comics reader, with the publisher purchasing the idea for $220. The original design was then modified by Mike Zeck, becoming the Venom symbiote. The concept would then be explored and used throughout multiple storylines, spin-off comics, and derivative projects. Imagine pitching something as big as that and being paid $220 for it. Well, okay, adjusting for inflation, that would be $516 now, which isn't bad honestly, but for a character like Venom, is absolutely abysmal. Finally, in at number 1, MORLUN. First appearing in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2 number 30 in 2001, MORLUN would be an incredible addition to the MCU, especially if they want to continue in the Spider-Verse sort of direction they appear to be starting in No Way Home. MORLUN is potentially the biggest threat Spider-Man has ever faced, requiring a whole multiverse of spider people, or as they're referred to in the comics, spider totems, to take him down. Coming from Earth 001, MORLUN uses these spider totems to stay alive, feeding on their energy and casually jumping from universe to universe to just just squash their Spider-Person like a bug. This guy is the backbone of the Spider-Verse concept, since a load of spider totems had to team up in order to take him down, but not without massive casualties. If they ever want a whole Avengers movie with just spider people, this would be the way to go.
Kicking off the list at number 10. UMAR. We'll kick this list off with one of the old gods who came to Earth millions of years ago. Only seems fair. UMAR made its first full appearance in Marvel Premiere issue 10. The Great Old One was banished from the Earth realm by a time-traveling sorcerer, Sized. Now Doctor Strange actually witnessed this happen because he himself was hoping to take down UMAR in the past in order to prevent his master, the Ancient One, from meeting their fate with that same beast. So we just got Starro in the DCEU, so I don't think this tentacle monster could be too far out of the MCU. Especially considering the fact that we saw a similar looking monster in episode 1 of What If, and then again in episode 4 of What If. Number 9. SATANISH. First appearing in Doctor Strange issue 174, SATANISH is one of the most powerful demons Earth has had to face. Created by the big bad of Doctor Strange 1, Dormammu, SATANISH, as his name hints towards, is an undercover agent inside the Hell Lords. He lives comfortably in the dimension adjacent to Earth's, which he of course rules. If you decide to follow SATANISH, he would promise you superhuman powers, so how could you avoid a face like that? Or rather, two faces like that. He has a face on his stomach and then a face on his face. So you're gonna be doing this to him the whole time you're talking to him. Not gonna know where to look. He's a class 2 demon, so when it comes to power, he's next in line right after Mephisto, who I may or may not mention on this list. He can open portals, fire mystical rays, and create mystical rays and barriers. He can do anything mystical. And as far as demons go, there's no place like home when he's residing in his own dimension. He's much, much stronger. So maybe Strange will end up in this dimension during his cosmic commute in the multiverse in the next movie. We're hoping. Number 8. Nightmare. Making his first debut back in Strange Tales 110. Nightmare's origins remain a mystery and is only known to few. Just like Eternity, he too is a deity. The guy's just trouble. He was born in the Everine dimension and he was seen as a cousin to the Dweller in the Darkness, but Nightmare didn't want any of that. He's the ruler of the Dream Dimension now, hence his name, and is one of the Lords of Fear. He's usually a villain to Ghost Rider and Strange, but I can see him making an appearance in the next Doctor Strange movie. All these multiple universes, he could at least show up for a bad dream or two. I don't know. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It really does help our videos out a lot, so hit that thumbs up, smash that button, you guys are great. Let's get back to the list. Number 7. UMAR. UMAR the Unrelenting. There's a name right there. She first appeared in Strange Tales issue 150. She was spawned alongside her older twin brother Dormammu by Sinifer, who was a Faltine. Faltines are beings of pure magical energy that again live in their own dimension. Usually when Faltines spawn, those new beings are the same as the previous ones, but here, something was different. These spawns craved physical matter, so when Sinifer tried to stop them, the pair transmuted him from energy into matter, basically killing him. The rest of the Faltine were angered, and then they kicked Dormammu and UMAR out of their dimension. Their next stop was the Dark Dimension, inhabited by the sorcerers known as the Maruks. When Dormammu attempted to invade Earth, he was defeated, essentially breaking a spell that previously banished UMAR. So her first plan now was to avenge her twin brother, and she did so by luring Strange into the Dark Dimension by holding his love hostage. Number 6. YANDROTH. First appearing in Strange Tales issue 164, YANDROTH was once a scientist who went head to head with Doctor Strange numerous times. You know how these scientists be beefing, you know, Elon and Tim Apple, whatever his name is. Strange of course beat him, but even better than that, he sent him through an alternate dimension where he was just free falling for all of eternity. Kind of like what happened to Loki in the Sanctum Sanctorum in Thor Ragnarok. It was there that YANDROTH learned that he could gain power simply by, you know, destroying an entire world. That ought to do it. So he created an Omegatron, which was not a Decepticon, but rather a be-all end-all of devices. He called himself the Scientist Supreme, and I don't think it's going to be long before this reality warping sorcerer scientist joins the MCU. We already have like 5 of them, I think. Number 5. Satana. Making her first appearance in Vampire Tales issue 2, Satana Hellstrom was born a couple years after her brother Damon. Now when she was just a child, her mother had found Satana and her father, the you know, devil, performing some black magic in their New England basement. Victoria was of course shocked. She was scared, pretty much exactly how you'd feel if you found your husband and daughter doing voodoo in the basement. You know, it would feel like that. She went mad when she witnessed her husband's true other appearance, you know, as a demon. So Damon was then placed in an orphanage while Satana was taken to the underworld to begin her training with the use of her demonic powers. Satana was later possessed by a demon called the Basilisk, but she remained in control over her mind and body, and even the Basilisk. The more she used the Basilisk to do her bidding, the stronger it would get, and therefore increased the risk of it one day turning against her. When she arrived to Earth, she was hungry for souls, so we could use that in the MCU for sure. Anyone hungry for souls? Hamburger, hot dogs, souls? We got it, let's do it. Number 4. NULL, the Living Darkness. First appearing in Defenders issue 103, NULL is a demonic entity created by the negative negative impulses of the Seraph, who once upon a time occupied Earth's moon. How lovely. It gained full consciousness and first took over the town of Christiansboro, Virginia, until the gargoyle drove it away later that same issue. It then possessed the body of Adam Henderson, but this time around it was defeated by Ghost Rider. Next, the Living Darkness traveled to Earth 712 and it managed to take over all of the United States, but it was destroyed by the Defenders and the Squadron Supreme. The more demonic entities in the MCU, the better. That's what I gotta say about that. Number 3, Kalu. First appearing in Strange Tales issue 147, Kalu was born over 500 years ago in a small area in the Himalayan mountains in Tibet. He grew up and befriended a boy named the Ancient One, and together they both shared interest in practicing the mystical arts. Later on, an evil vampire named Varney met with Kalu and taught him about black magic, straight up from the Darkhold, the Book of the Damned. So with this new dark knowledge, Kalu tried to rule Kamar Taj. He used his powers to influence the mind of residents and then made them immortal, so naturally they now looked up to this higher power. But with that, he slowly started to control their minds, but they didn't realize. Before the Ancient One's death, Kalu tried to steal the Book of the Vishanti from them. Doctor Strange and the Ancient One had to steal the book back, memorize its spells, and then toss it back in time to its origin point in Babylonia. So Strange then went back in time, used that book to turn Kalu's spell onto him, and then casted him into suspended animation. I would love to watch sorcerers play time travel football with a book of magic. I'd watch that any day. Debit. Number 2, AMORA. She made her first debut in Journey into Mystery issue 103, and she has a pretty sweet life, I'm not gonna lie. She's got multiple mansions throughout all the realms, and she can make gold and diamonds with her tears. She's really good at seducing people as well. It's almost her superpower, some would say. One kiss is all it takes for her to completely own you and tell you what to do. In the comics, she was sent by Odin to take out Jane Foster because the whole relationship with Thor, that was a no-go. So she tried to attack Jane and Thor intervened, and in turn she was banished to Earth by Odin, where she then joined the Masters of Evil. She's of course gotten on Strange's bad side, you know, being a magic user and all, and in Captain Marvel volume 10 issue 6, she Freaky Fridays Doctor Strange and Captain Marvel. They straight up swap bodies. So Strange had the magic community ban her from learning magic. More than fair. Also the card community for Magic the Gathering, they're like, you know what, we don't want her either. We'll ban her as well. And finally, number 1, you guessed it, Mephisto. Fans wanted this dude back during WandaVision, so of course we're still holding out hope for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Mephisto first made his appearance in Silver Surfer issue 3. He's the ruler of Hades. He's known for his sweet deals in Marvel Comics. The One More Day storyline is about Spider-Man selling his marriage to Mephisto in order to save a dying Aunt May. So you really don't want to see him at all, if anything. Strange and Mephisto have had their moments in comics, of course. In Doctor Strange volume 2 issue 17, Mephisto used James Mandarin to lure Strange to hell. Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme issue 6, he has to fight Mephisto, Mephisto's daughter. One of my favorite comics with these two though has to be Doctor Strange issue 386, where Steven tries to repair Las Vegas but accidentally brings up Hotel Inferno, where he then has to play Brimstone Blackjack with the devil. Trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home doesn't give away too much, but fans don't believe that Mephisto is part of this movie as well.